Hey neighbors, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the CURT Underbed Gooseneck Trailer Hitch here in our 2024 Chevy Silverado 2500. If you're looking for an option to tow your gooseneck trailer, or maybe you just want a clear bed but you couldn't get the prep system with your truck, the CURT Underbed Gooseneck Hitch is going to be the right option for you. CURT's design with this gooseneck ball is really simple to use. You'll simply pull up that lever, and if you turn it to one of the sides, it'll release the two balls inside of here that lock into place inside of the hitch. Now, there are a few concerns with this. We get this question quite a bit. Hey, I got my gooseneck ball in there and it's locked in place. I can't get it out anymore. The lever's not working because it got smashed with the gooseneck coupler. Unfortunately, that is just a design flaw with this hitch. If you wanted something different that's a little bit better where you don't have to worry about that, that's where you'd want to look into like the B&W gooseneck hitch, the turnover ball. That's going to have a little lever on the inside out into your wheel well, so you can just pull it out, and that's what locks the ball in place, and it'll give you the option to drop in their fifth wheel hitch for a little bit nicer and cleaner look. So the biggest benefit of a gooseneck hitch is that you can easily just pop out the ball, and then you have a clear bed so that you can easily load any cargo in, and you don't have it fighting against anything. If you put base rails in, then you have rails that run across the whole width of the bed, and then there's going to stick up like 2 inches. So kind of impedes what you can really put in your bed, and especially if you're hauling anything that's kind of flat. But with this, you can still get a fifth wheel hitch in here as well. We would drop our ball in, and then you could look into a fifth wheel hitch that attaches to the gooseneck ball like the Demco Recon or even the CURT Crosswing. This gooseneck hitch is going to come with a 32,500 pound gross towing capacity and a 8,125 pound vertical load limit. Now that is pretty high. Most trucks aren't really going to have that, so you definitely want to make sure that you go and you check out exactly how much your truck can handle before you overload it. Now the installation is going to vary depending on the truck. There are different versions where you're going to have some things that are going to be in your way under the bed, and then others where it's not. And you know, your installation could be super easy, or it could be a little bit time consuming. Overall, it really isn't that hard because it's separated into those 3 pieces. It does say that there's no drilling, but that is just more so meaning that you're not drilling into the frame, which is a lot harder to drill through. You will be drilling through your bed because you got to get the gooseneck ball and your safety chain loops in there. But overall, not too bad. You definitely will want to get a set of ratcheting wrenches just because there's a lot of tight spots under the bed where you're going to need to get to, and sockets really aren't able to get in places. So the only other saw that you're going to need is just that 3 1/4 inch hole saw to cut through here. You'll definitely want to get the bit where you can have your single drill bit through so that you can easily use that. Grab yourself a piece of plywood too, just like I'll do later on in this install, so that you can have it sit here and give yourself a nice wobble-free way to drill down through the bed. With all that said, let's go ahead and show you how we got this installed. Starting off our installation, we've already dropped down the spare tire, and next we're going to remove our heat shields just so we have a little bit more room to work here. You're going to need a 13mm socket. There's going to be a bolt right here on our frame. Drop down, and then one more over here on this crossbeam right here. Next heat shield that we're going to get out of the way just to make things easier and actually get our cross members in place is this heat shield right here. There's going to be a bolt right here, right up here, another one on the frame back here, and then on that cross beam up in there. So we'll pop that out. Those are going to be another 13mm hex bolt. You're going to need a ratcheting wrench to make this a whole lot easier because you can't really get a socket wrench in there. Now with all 4 bolts out, we can slide out our heat shield. You'll see it's got a little bit of like a sticky tape here on the cross beams, so you might have to kind of pry up on that just a little bit, but it shouldn't really give you too much trouble. The biggest fight here is going to be getting these 2 bolts out just because it's such tight clearance. Next, we're going to unmount this harness right up here. There's going to be 2 10mm bolts. And we're just going to stick our wrench up there and pop these out. These aren't really hard. You don't need a gun or screw gun or anything to get these out. These are honestly pretty loose. Right here I have our 2 center attachment plates. These are pretty much similar on how they look. The difference between these two is going to be the mounting holes. If you look at this side, we've got 2 square holes, and on the other one we only have 1. So we know this is going to be our driver's side, and this one over here is going to be our passenger side. The next step is going to be dropping in one of these 5/8 by 1.5 inch bolts, carriage bolts, into the top on both of these assemblies. Now there is another bolt in there that's just slightly longer, so you want to make sure you don't get these two mixed up. These ones are a little bit shinier than the 5/8 by 1.5, so that's another way to tell them apart. Drop those in. One helpful trick to keep these from popping up and then fighting you the whole time you're trying to get this bracket into place, just take some painter's tape and run it over the top of them, kind of secure them down. We'll throw our driver's side in. Just a second reminder, this is the one where it only has 1 hole on it, and that's going to be facing forward towards the front of the truck. We'll slip that in. And now you might need to lower your exhaust. I was going to try and do it without lowering it, but I think we might end up just doing that anyway. They say for some models, so it's not for all. We'll go ahead, we'll grab a strap, and we're just going to run it across the frame, and then that's going to hang on that instead, so the full weight of the exhaust has something holding it up. So we have a tool specifically designed to kind of help pop this out. I mean, it's not, honestly, it's not the best, but you could easily just use a pry bar as well. Just make sure that you have a strap or something to hold your exhaust. We don't want that dropping down. Now with the exhaust lowered a little bit, we can go ahead and try and slide in our passenger side. I'm going to go ahead on the driver's side and just kind of lean the inner part out. That way I can kind of slip the passenger side past it, because it's going to fight it if we just have it sitting straight across right now. So I've got both up here. My driver's side went in pretty easy. It's the passenger side that's fighting me on this one. What happened is up top here, the frame has this coating on it from GM to help preserve it, but of course it allows everything to stick to it, and now we got a whole bunch of stuff kind of gummed up, and you can even kind of see some of it on the bottom of the bracket here. So this is going to take just a little bit of muscling to kind of get it fully in place, just because we're fighting that grease that they put on here. Now it's time for our center section. There's going to be 4 holes on the side that's going to be facing the rear of the truck, and 3 on the side facing the front of the truck. We're going to take our center locator, that little trim shield, and I'm just going to go ahead and tape over that as well. One other thing I did just to make this a little bit easier, because obviously this is pretty heavy, and we're going to be fighting the bolts that we put in and taped over before on those other weldments. Those are going to slip into these 4 holes right here. So what I did was I measured this from center to center. It's 8.5 inches, and then I adjusted my bolts, or my brackets around up there, so that the bolts are 8.5 inches apart. That way I can hopefully just pop it right in, make this a whole lot easier. But we'll lift it up. I'm gonna rest right here and come across. A little bit of finagling here too, because we are fighting the exhaust, and there's really not much flexibility here on it. With our center section in place, we're going to take our 5/8 flange nuts, and we're going to start threading that in on some of those bolts. That's going to help hold up our center section here. I might get it in a little bit more. Next is the latch plate, and that's going to be this little guy right here with this little tab. That tab's going to face inward, and then we're going to put our 1 3/4 inch length 5/8 carriage bolts through the back side where there's those 4 holes. So we'll go ahead. You might have to lift this up a little bit just because we loosely did those bolts earlier. So you might find you got a little bit of an alignment issue trying to stick these in. There we go. But as soon as we get a couple, it'll kind of hold itself in place right. And then we'll just put on our 5/8 flange nuts. Next, we're going to take the 1.5 inch length 5/8 carriage bolts. We're going to pop those in the front. There is no plate that's going to go on this. I just believe that's just because there's not really enough room. But might have to jiggle it around a little bit. There we go. And we will finish those off with our flange nuts. All right, so now with our center section loosely put together with those bolts, we're going to go ahead and throw on the outer frame piece here. We're going to start with the driver's side. Make sure you look at this very carefully because there's two pieces that have this long flange right here, but they're a little bit different at the end. The other piece that goes on the passenger side has kind of more of a bigger hump down on that side. So we'll go ahead and grab also our hardware. We're going to have another little bracket like this, which is going to be at the back of it, and that's going to clamp down on the frame. And to do so, we'll have our longer carriage bolts, a sleeve, and then a flange nut. And then for the two holes that are going up into our center section, we're going to have those hex bolts, a split lock washer, and then a regular washer. I'm just going to slip this in from the wheel well. You might have to kind of like pull up on the liner a little bit, but should go in no problem for you. Now we can lift it up into place. Like I said, that liner getting in your way a little bit. Take our long carriage bolt. We'll pop that in the top hole here. You're gonna have to kind of pry back on the wheel well liner. Feel it? There it is. We'll have that come across. We'll take our sleeve here, and then we can put our bracket. I'm gonna kind of pull that back just a little bit to get the bracket in place. Put our sleeve through, and our flange nut. We want to tighten these down evenly so this clamps nice and straight. We don't want this crooked or leaning more one way than the other. To get our outside plate on our passenger side, we're going to have to slip in a carriage bolt in a little spacer right here. We're going to thread on one of our fish wires, and then we'll kind of pull that back a little bit. We can slip in our bolt and then slip in the fish or the spacer into that slot. And then as we pull that fish wire back, it's going to lock it into place so we have that bolt sticking out. It's a little bit harder to see just because the wheel well liner's in the way. You got two brackets left. This longer one of the two is going to be going on the outside, and then the shorter one is going to be on the inside. We'll flip this around, and then that bolt that we put through with the fish wire is going to come out right here. With our fish wire bolt in place, we're going to take one of these little small spacers. We're going to slip that on. And then we can grab our plate. Of the two plates, the longer one is going to be the outside, and the shorter one is going to be the inside portion of our frame. And on the front here of it, there's going to be this circle hole, and that's where we're going to stick that bolt through. So we'll pass our fish wire through and slip this down in there. All right, now that we can actually see what we're doing, line that up a little bit better. And we can pull off our fish wire. and grab a flange nut. Gonna want to kind of put some pressure on that bolt so it doesn't slip back in to the frame. We'll just loosely tie that in because we also need to get our other bolts in place. Same thing as we did before. We're going to have these two hex bolts going up into the cross member. So I'm going to get back in there and get those two threaded in. Next step, we're going to get our inside portion of this. This is going to be that shorter bracket. We're going to have the last two of the shorter, long carriage bolts, and then this one really long one. We're going to have two hex bolts with our split lock washers, regular washers. And these are going to be going up into that center cross member, and that's going to thread into the weld nuts there. On these guys, we're going to have the two shorter carriage bolts go across like we were doing with the other brackets, and then at the bottom here, we're going to have that longer one go through. Each one of those is also going to get a flange nut, so we got 3 of those all ready to go. I'm going to start with our hex bolts, have this kind of held up in place by that, and then we can go ahead and slide in those other carriage bolts. Throughout this process, you know, some of these are kind of hard to do by hand. They like to powder coat the whole thing, and then sometimes that gets in the threads, and they don't want to fight you. Catching on the head of our carriage bolt. Get it into that hole. There we go. And we'll get our flange nut on. Now for that last carriage bolt, slide that through. Thread started. With all of our hardware loosely in place, now we're going to begin tightening everything down. Now, CURT has very specific instructions on which bolts you need to do first. The 4 bolts that go up, that connect our weldments for the frame to the center section, those guys we need to do first. Then we're going to do our 7 bolts, the 4 that are here and the 3 that are on the back. And then as we work our way out, we're going to go to our hex bolts, these guys right here. And we're going to go all of the hex bolts that we had put in, and then we can go back to our 1/2-inch hardware where we got those longer carriage bolts and start tightening all those down. On these 4 ones going up, connecting our cross beam all together, we're going to use a 15/16 socket. Snug those down. So for these 2 bolts, there's not enough room for you to really get any kind of ratcheting tool in there. So you pretty much are going to have to use just a standard wrench. Those 2, like I said before, are going to be 15/16, so you just got to sit there and fight it. You're also fighting the transaxle too, so I mean, you're only getting maybe 1/4 of a turn each time. Next, we're doing our hex bolts. Same thing, 15/16. I'm going to do these 2 on the inside, and then I'll go to the outside of the frame. We got our 2 outside ones on the frame here on the passenger side, and then we'll have 2 on the other side on the driver. Now we got all those hex bolts done, we're going to go over to our longer carriage bolts with the 3/4 inch socket. We'll get those tightened down, and you want to kind of keep these even, so you can see I got way more threads than, on this one than that one. If I don't get these both kind of even up, then we could have our brackets kind of sit cockeyed, you know, either way back and forth there. So now we're just going to repeat that same process, but now with our torque wrench. You're going to want to definitely check the torque settings in your instructions. Now with all of our hardware torqued down, we're going to take a 3/16 drill bit and we're going to go right up through the center of our gooseneck hole. And that little center finder is going to have a hole in the center of it, so it makes it super easy. That way you don't accidentally drill in the wrong spot. So we'll take our drill, up in there, find our hole. Now that we have our 3/16 hole as our little guide here, we can take a 3 1/4 hole saw, and I've already gone through a board with it to kind of help take out some of that wobble, because as you're doing this, it's, you know, it's going to try and fight you the whole way down. So we can get this all lined up. Come down a little bit, and then we can use our feet here, and we can start drilling our hole. A little bit too low, but that's what I protected there for. Pop that out, and we can kind of start filing down any little burrs we have on here and clean up our area. And then there's going to be a little protector, like wire loom material that they provide that you can put around here, so that way you're not accidentally scratching your finger or anything when you're putting in your gooseneck ball. Since we drilled through this and now we have exposed metal, we're going to want to cover that up. You can use some clear coat. In our case, we're just going to use some black spray paint. I'm going to put my board here to kind of prevent any overspray. All right, now with our paint dried up, we can go ahead and take our little trim gasket piece here, and we're going to slip that on. It's just got a slit down the middle of it. It can be a little bit harder because this has a little bit thicker of a liner here since it's got the spray in. If it was just the bed, that's typically what this is kind of for. So you might find this is a little bit harder to get on. I'm going to start with one of the higher ridges and kind of force it around through the lower side here though. And then start piecing it on. Might need to take like a little flathead screwdriver, kind of help you push it in if you're having problems with it. So I fought the spray and bed liner and I did get the little gasket on, but it's preventing our gooseneck ball from being able to actually fully drop in. So we are going to end up having to pull it off. I'll give you a little example here. So this would have to go down, you have to really compress it, and it's not wanting to lock that into place. So shouldn't have to do that every single time you want to do that. So we're going to end up just taking this off. This is going to be a case where you just kind of not, or you can't really have a spray and bed liner with this little gasket here. If you wanted to, you could probably take something a little bit smaller, but it's probably going to be a no-go if you have a spray and bed liner. So let's see, now good to go. We're back under the truck. We're going to drill out our holes for our safety chain loops. If you look on either side of the gooseneck hitch hole, there's 2 holes. We just want to get a drill bit in there. We're going to make a little pilot hole, and then we'll get our larger drill bit and drill it out the rest of the way so we can drop in our loops. So we're gonna come up top. I'm just gonna use a step bit. This is kind of the easier way. I just really wanted to make sure, you know, foolproof down from the bottom that we were coming right up through those holes because I didn't want to have any issues getting our safety chain loops in, but our bit gave out on us on this side, so I only got one of them done from the bottom, so now we're up here with the step bit. I'm gonna, because we're using a step bit, it's coming in at an angle, so we're gonna have a little bit more metal still here just at that angle, so I'm gonna file it out so that our loop can just drop right in. That one's good. All right. So for these little holes, we're going to also take a paint marker and just touch that up, protect our bed. Don't want that rusting out. And the spray paint's a bit much for these little guys. So now we're back under the truck. We're going to take a washer. We're going to have our spring. We're going to have another washer, and then we're going to have our nut, and that's what's going to keep our safety chain loops able to spring back and forth so that we can easily use them, but have them out of the way when we're not. Now we're just going to run these up until they're flush with the bottom of our bolt. Let me move this over a bit. With the nuts on our safety chain loops finally ran down so that they're flush, the only thing left that we have to do is just rehang our exhaust, put our heat shield back up, our spare tire, and then also you just want to remember to reinsert those two 10 mil bolts that hold this wire harness in place. Well, I think that about does it for today's installation and look at the CURT Underbed Gooseneck Hitch here on our 2024 Chevy Silverado 2500. If this video wasn't helpful to you, or you still have questions, please feel free to drop us a question, comment, or give us a phone call, and we'd be happy to help you out.